You've never had a credit card they re-scam to you. No, you just have to manage it. You just have to be aware of what you're doing. I think credit cards are great if you are not prone to overspending. If you're one of those people who cannot use it like a debit card, you're gonna get yeah, getting the percent points back, whatever, getting the percent cash back, all those things is really good if you go and use it. Because a lot of those cards, they'll be like, oh, you get 3% of your money back as points to do whatever. And then people never check those points and use it. So they feel like they're getting savings, but they're not, right? Yeah, if you pay it off each month, like exactly, then it's no problem. I personally love it. And yeah, it gets paid off all the time. I have it draft payments. I do weekly as well. Yeah, I farm up points for whatever. I have multiple cards, so I min-max. And if I'm paying for one type of thing, I know what category it's in, so I use that card for that, this card for that. My credit score is super fucking high because I started doing that really early and built that credit up. And it makes it so that if I need to get approved for anything, I'll get approved like instantly because my history with that looks really good, you know? So that's something to note, that you do need that history to buy certain things. For sure. You would never use credit if you could afford to pay for things outright? I mean, for me, I never spent on credit when I didn't physically have the money in my account. That was something I just never did, you know? But some people do live in that cycle where they're drafting back a little bit. So yeah, it makes sense. Ooh, this year you finished climbing out of a 10-year debit hole caused by bad credit card usage. Oh. Or debit, I said debit, debt hole. Yeah, it's fucking rough. A lot of people, they get better with it over time. But when they first get a credit card, when they're like 18, 20, they overspend. And they don't have the idea of a budget in their head. That is the thing. And this is something your parents should teach you, but they should also teach in school. And I feel like for some people, neither teaches them this, but just the simple idea of a budget and a realistic expectation of like this percent of your paycheck will likely go toward this. This is what this costs in this area, blah, 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 right? So people can realistically imagine things, because someone will get a job and they'll make $3K a month. And then they'll see rent somewhere being $2K a month. And they're like, that's only 2/3 of what I make. I can afford that. You know what I mean? Like, that's how they'll do the math in their head. And I'm like, did you account for the taxes coming out of that 3K you made, quote unquote, to start? Are you aware of what's standard percentage-wise to pay of your paycheck toward your rent? Do you know how much you eat? Do you know what all of your other costs are? Do you write them down at all? Do you ever analyze that data at all? Like, you know? And I think a lot of people, when they're younger, are not taught to do that or to think about that. So I know a fuck ton of people that got like their first credit card and immediately went in the red. Immediately. Isn't pocket money you get as a child supposed to teach that? No, that's not enough. That's not enough. Adult life is way more complicated financially than it used to be. I think the problem is the volume of things that you pay for regularly. Back in the day, you had what? Payments for your house, payments for your car, maybe telephone bills, cable TV. Done. That was like it, right? And then a magazine subscription. And that was always the joke in media, right? They'd be like, oh, we got unsubscribed from those magazines. My wife always paying for those magazines or whatever. That's still the case. No, it's so much more. So much more. Everyone's got Amazon Prime. Everyone plays a fucking MMO. Everyone blah, blah. And they're just like, they're like 20 more things like that. All of your different bills are often, people will put them in auto pay instead of sitting there and like physically paying the paper bills. So they forget and they become less aware of what those numbers are because they don't sit there and do this math, regularly, balance their checkbooks, sit there and just kind of double check what their expenses are realistically. So a lot of these things that just draft from their accounts automatically, they just forget. They just forget how much it is. And a lot of the time they don't look at an aggregated thing, to see all of this money going out, especially if you have more than one bank account that money is getting taken out of. And I think it just gets overcomplicated for a lot of people. And because they don't sit there and put the time in to like really do that and put it all in one spot, I think it just makes it so that people become incredibly unaware of what they're doing. Right? Just incredibly unaware of their actual financial situation. And, they don't check until it's like tax time. Some people check once a month, but not check everything, And I think that's like, it's such a simple process to do it. Number one, they just don't because they never got in the habit. Number two, they just want it to be aggregated for them. They're not used to doing it themselves and they're not taught the optimal way to do it. They've never done it before. So they just don't even try. And I just know so many people that have gotten into a bad hole because they just stay unaware. That's rough. Your husband and you have a monthly budget meeting. You married an accountant. Good. That's what I'm saying. Like, actually doing a budget is something that people need to be taught how to do, because anyone can do it on paper. Anyone can learn how to do this, but knowing how to properly do this, what's realistic, what you're supposed to budget, quote unquote, I don't know. Having someone guide someone through that the first time is always good. Then from there, it's super easy. But I think most people don't know how to do that, how to properly estimate and forecast things. So it's rough. It's rough, and they don't even try. I don't know. I think the more complicated everything gets, the more potential income sources and expenses there are, the more people just don't have a handle on their finances. And that's what gets a lot of people into a rough spot with debt, because they just don't know how much they're spending, because there isn't one paper they get every month that tells them everything, right? I think I'll rack up as much debt as I can with my current identity and then drop it and become a new person. They'll never think of that. It's a good point. It's a good point. I like that. There are a bunch of services that are pretty good for it, but there's one called You Need a Budget, YNAB. And that one I've said, a lot of friends have said that they like, and I've recommended it to a few people. That one's pretty solid. So if you don't know what you're doing, it'll help you properly budget yourself out. It's step by step, takes you through it. So if no one ever taught you this shit, you know, the site will teach you this shit. But you can just do it in your own spreadsheet. Like, it's honestly totally fine.